Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite baits for fishing up here in the Northeast. It's one of my all-time top fish catchers up here in the Northeast. One of my favorite baits to fish every single year. It is an absolute largemouth killer on any of these northern natural lakes that we fish up here. Grass lakes, works excellent. We're going to show you everything on how to set this bait up, how to rig it up, your rod, reel, line setup, and everything you need to know about this bait so you can catch more fish fishing up here in the Northeast as well this year. So stay tuned, let's get right into it. All right, so for starters, let's talk about why this works in the Northeast, and truthfully, this works in more places than just in the Northeast. So for me, Pennsylvania, Northeast up to Maine, like that's where I would fish this bait. New York is a bait that I've caught a ton of fish up in New York doing this. I've caught fish in Virginia on the Potomac doing this, the Chesapeake Bay, anywhere in Pennsylvania, Ohio. I've even caught fish in Florida using this exact same technique. So it doesn't just work in the Northeast. I'm sure it works over in like Michigan, Wisconsin, places like that, where they have the same types of lakes that we do. Those clear, natural lakes, grass, stuff like that, where those fish can get in holes in the grass. That's where I'm really gonna use this technique. And what it is, I kid you not, it's a senko for one. I'm not the originator of this technique, nothing like that. It's just something that I've caught a ton of fish over the years and wanna show you guys so you can catch a ton of fish too. It's a senko with an 1/8 ounce weight. We're gonna show you how to rig that up in just a second. It sounds really basic, it is really basic, but the reason it works so well, I catch fish all year round on it. Spring, I'll catch pre-spawn fish on it. I'll catch spawning fish on it. I go to the Potomac, you're gonna cast this thing as far as you can and drag it along the bottom. It will go through a clump of grass and it'll break free and fall into a hole in the grass, and those fish are spawning in there. You might not see that fish, but your bait lands on them from 50 yards away and you're gonna catch that fish because it's just gonna clear that bait off of its nest. I've done it 100 times, thousands of times up here in the north. You just fish these big grass flats and you drag your bait across them and catch these fish. You don't even know that they're there, but they're out there spawning and you can catch them over and over and over again, catch some big ones doing stuff like that. You get in these areas with massive spawning flats of fish. You just catch a bunch of fish doing that. I've done it in Florida, I've done it at the Potomac, Chesapeake, I've done it on lakes up here in the Northeast. Then, when they're done spawning, post-spawn fish, they're gonna go get in those holes in the grass and find bluegill beds that are spawning in those holes in the grass. It could be deeper grass, and you catch them out there doing the same thing. You drag it through the hole, it falls down, they grab it. There's big schools of bass in these holes trying to eat bluegills, and they'll eat your worm when it goes down through there too. So I catch them all summer long using the same technique. I've caught them in anywhere from 2 foot of water up to like 12 foot of water on this exact same technique. I don't change anything. I don't even use a different weight size. I fish it exactly the same way in those types of conditions. So for starters, let's talk about the rod and reel. This is probably the most basic rod and reel. Everyone should have this. This is a Cash and Icon, 7 foot fast, medium heavy. If you don't have the Cash and Icon, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be that one. But I'll link everything I use down below. So if you want to get any of those rods, reels, baits, any of that, you can do that as well. Biggest thing here, you just want a good worming rod. The 7 foot fast, medium heavy has the backbone to set the hook with a Texas rig worm, but it also has a tip so you can feel that bait out there while it's dragging around down there on the bottom, and it's light in the hand. So pretty basic setup. Everyone should probably have that. I also have a Corrado MGL on here. This is a 7:1 gear ratio. Must have fast gear ratio for this. These fish will eat this bait and swim right at you sometimes. You have to catch up with them and get a good hook set. A lot of times you're moving the bait with your rod, so you'll have to pick up the slack out of your line as you're dragging the bait before you drag the bait. So you'll pick up your slack, you'll drag the bait a little bit, pick up your slack, drag the bait a little bit. So the faster your gear ratio, faster you can pick up that line. It makes it a little bit easier to fish it throughout the day. And then I spool it up with straight 14-pound test fluorocarbon. I don't use any other line. I use straight 14-pound test fluorocarbon. It has enough power to it that you don't break off, you don't lose fish, stuff like that. You will have to retie from time to time, but it's also thin enough that you get a lot more bites with this than if you went with 17 or something like that. It'll give your worm a little bit more action, free-flowing line in the water. It's a little more limp than something that's heavier. So that's very important to use a lighter line. I don't go any lighter than that. We have a lot of pike and pickerel up here, and you'll still lose this to pike and pickerel and stuff like that. if on 17 or even 20, if no matter what size line, if they inhale it, you're going to break off on them. But you don't lose as many bass on 14 than you would on like 12, but you get more action than 17. So 14 is the sweet spot. So now let's show you how to rig this thing up, and kind of the bait selection and everything like that. You know I love to peg my weights. I will not peg my weight with this technique, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But I have my tag end of my line right here. So all I'm gonna do is take that tag end, an 1/8 ounce bullet sinker, and I'm gonna slide that right up my line. So I have that free flowing on my line right there. I'm gonna slide that up and get that out of the way. And then I'm going to take a 3/0 hook, extra wide gap. That's my favorite. That's really what I like to use. You could go bigger. Again, we're gonna talk about in 1 second why I use a 3/0 as well, but let's get this rigged up first. So I'm gonna tie a Palomar knot. I'm gonna go straight through the eye, the front side, come back through on the back side, have a loop here, have my tag ends over here, and I'll go ahead and just tie my standard Palomar knot. I'm not gonna wet this, but always wet your knots, because I'm not fishing this, so this will just get cut off later because it's February here in Pennsylvania. So I'll cinch that down, and then we'll cut our tag end with our clippers right here. So I'll take my little snips and I'll cut my tag end down to where I need it, and that's it. So you're probably thinking that's the most basic Texas rig setup ever, which it is. That's how you would Texas rig any bait that's out there. It's the most basic setup ever. But there's a few reasons why this works. So what I will do, I'll then take the 6 Sense Clout, which is my favorite worm to use for this. I'll go ahead, stab it through the face, come down till I get to the bend of the hook, go out the bottom. I'll bring it up and around so that it's straight on the hook, and then I will just Texas rig my bait like I would Texas rig anything else. So now you have a worm on a 3/0 hook with an 1/8 ounce weight and nothing else. No peg, nothing. That's it. Now, the reason I don't use the peg, when you cast this out and you're dragging it through those grass flats, one, anytime you peg your weight, you're gonna lose more fish than you would with an unpegged weight, because that weight will be up against the bait. Fish will eat both of them. When you set the hook, the weight can kind of pop the fish's mouth open just a little bit, so you don't hook up as good. What I will do, the reason I do this, I will drag my bait, you'll get it stuck in some grass, you'll pop it free. When it pops free, the weight will go down and it'll kind of separate from the bait a little bit. So the weight might touch the bottom first. An 1/8 ounce isn't gonna go much faster than the Senko, but it might get down there first. So you have 10 inches of line or whatever that your weight's down here, your bait's up here, and then this will just slowly flutter down to the bottom. And then when you drag it, it'll pull all the slack out of your weight and get it to working like a regular Senko again. But that little flutter at the end where you have basically a weightless bait, it's a way to get a little bit of a weightless presentation down in 12, 10 foot of water and some big holes in the grass up on New York lakes. Catches a lot of fish doing that. So you're gonna get more hookups and you're gonna have that little bit of flutter. The last thing is this hook right here, the 3/0, doesn't go very far back in the bait, which is good. It goes far enough that you can get a good hook set, but it doesn't go too far back that it's gonna kill the action. So the bigger the hook you have, the less shimmy you're gonna get out of your bait. So I like the 3/0 size. It gives it a nice action, a nice shimmy, and gets a lot of bites that way. You could use a 5/0 if you wanted to. It would still work. You could use a 1/0 if you wanted to. You'd probably lose a little bit more fish because you're not gonna have enough hook gap. But the 3/0 seems to be the sweet spot for the way that I fish this bait and how I like to do it. So that's the one that I've been using there. And then when it comes to bait selection, like I said, I like the 6 Sense Clout. I got a bunch of them here, and I fish all variety of different colors. The #1 type of go-to color that I have are these ones right here. Again, you're gonna see like no black and blue, no June bug, any of that. These fish are feeding on bluegills, they're feeding on perch, stuff like that. Green pumpkin burst with some glitter if I want a little bit of color. Watermelon red or dark melon red, something that's like a green pumpkin with some flake in it. Anything in that natural like color, those muted down natural tones, greens, watermelons, green pumpkins, stuff like that. The only time I will go to a different color if I have a little bit of color in the water Nirvana is probably one of my favorite colors of all time. It's half green pumpkin, half black and blue. Still has that toned down color, natural look, but it gets you a little bit more pop to the bait with the half and half contrast there. So sometimes I'll throw that color as well. But that's it. I will find those holes in the grass. I'll throw it out there. I'll drag it real slow. If you'd like to see a video on how to actually fish that thing and catching some fish this summer, leave a comment down below. I will make a video this summer when I get out there and start actually fishing that bait. But right now, if you're getting prepared, ready to do some fishing this spring and summer up here in the Northeast, that's one you might want to start ordering, have on hand, and try it this year on some of your bodies of water. Spawning fish, pre-spawn, post-spawn, summer fish, it catches all of them. I'll catch a ton of largemouth on that bait all year round. If you want to get any of the 6th Sense products down below and support the channel, you can use my code Quince. You'll save 10% off your order. You'll be helping out the channel a ton to keep making videos like this for you guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Check out this video right here if you want to see my favorite smallmouth fishing bait for up here in the Northeast and how to do that. And hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss any more of my fishing videos coming up. And thanks for watching.